How's it going, everyone? My name is Amos, and I think it's absolutely crazy to me that there's dividend-paying stocks where, despite blood and panic and fear on the streets, they'll still increase their dividend payment year over year, decade after decade, for the past 50 years or so. Friends and family, that's the definition of a dividend king. In today's video, we're continuing on in a two-part series of ranking and grading the dividend kings. And to pick it up where we left off, let's go ahead and put Abbott into a grade. And by the way, some of these kings, they ought to be named court jesters, because I don't know why they're still a king. I'm looking at you, Archer Daniels. Did I offend you? I apologize. But now I know this might sound controversial, but I think we're going to have to switch things up because ultimately I was going to put Abbott into the B tier. However, I do not think one of these companies, they don't look like the others in terms of their dividend profile, which is what ultimately constitutes about 50% of their grade. And I'm going to have to bump down the S&P Global. They're going to be a C+, and instead, Abbott has now taken the place over here. I know that's a hot take, and that's controversial, but I want to remind you, if you take a look at the dividend profile of Abbott Laboratories, a 1.8% dividend yield, payout ratio, absolutely healthy, sustainable. Their growth rate is 7.4%, whereas SPGI, jump on over to their dividend profile, a 0.7% dividend yield with the exact same payout ratio, but the dividend growth rate is 3% less. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but as a dividend-paying stock against the competition, SPGI, you ain't above Abbott. That's the facts, man. Maybe if this video was only about the growth and the CAGR, then S&P Global, you might be ahead, but as a dividend thinking hat on, I know I don't have a hat on, you just ain't above Abbott. So let's move on before it gets too controversial and I get too many thumbs down. We're going to be talking about Target, ticker symbol TGT. Year to date, I would argue they're on a buying opportunity dip right now. They're pretty much around their 1 year metric, which is $87.35, meaning the lowest price they achieved in the past 365 calendar days, $93. They're pretty much at their lowest valley price. And it's a retail chain that is known for their shopping experience. Except for the past 2 to 3 years, everything that you need is pretty much locked away behind a glass door, and you need to wave down an associate to open it up so you can get your laundry detergent because there's a lot of people stealing from Targets. Bro, do not steal from Target or Walmart. Their loss prevention and asset protection team, dude, they are gonna get you. Do not do it. But what makes Target different from Walmart is obviously the customer demographics. Target tends to skew heavy towards the middle, high income earners, more white and Asian families like Target, whereas with Walmart, you get a mix of everybody, but it does skew towards the lower income side of the house. And with Target, it's not really a place that you go to buy your groceries. Instead, it's a place you go to buy makeup, clothes, and even furniture. Whereas with Walmart, you pretty much go there to do everything. It's kind of like Amazon in person. And if we take a look at their dividend profile, friends and family, now we're cooking. Now we're on the Food Network with Emerald Live. Bam! Dude, as a kid, I used to love that man's show. No, I'm not good at cooking. I suck. I prefer to order out, buy a Chipotle, get a McDonald's on the way home from work. I don't really like cooking, but I like watching people cook, and that man single-handedly entertains me after school for a lot of my youth. But anyways, we're cooking because the dividend yield is just shy of 5%. And what makes this even more impressive is that the dividend payment is qualified, meaning that it's going to be taxed at the capital gains rate, 0, 15, or 20%. Most of us watching this video, it'll probably be somewhere between 0 or that 15%. Some of you, I know you rich, all right? You're going to be taxed at that 20%. But that's a lot better than being taxed at your ordinary income level, such that of the BDCs or REITs. Because those distributions, yeah, you're going to get taxed at 28, 32, 33%. A lot higher tax obligation. So to see a 4.9% dividend yield with a qualified dividend coming out of it makes my heart happy. But what does not make my heart so happy is the dividend growth rate of 1.8%. I think so far, out of all of the dividend kings, that's the smallest dividend growth rate we have seen so far. and that's not good. But hey, at least the payout ratio says it's pretty good. About 52% of their profits, of their bottom line, is used to pay this right here, $4.56. If we jump on over to their income statement, it's rough, okay? There's no way to manipulate or sugarcoat it. I mean, they reached a high in 2023 of $109 billion, but since then, it's just been falling, okay? And it gets worse because if you take a look at their earnings per share, $8.58, it's declining since 2024 as well. So you might be confused as to why I'm saying this is a buying opportunity and why I think it's temporary and why I still feel bullish about Target going forward. And I feel that way because, believe it or not, there's a large group of people that refuse to step inside of a Walmart, okay? Likewise, there's people that refuse to go to a Waffle House because you don't know if you're going to be catching hands, right? From an angry drunk, or the customer service might not even be there. I think if Target can execute a strategy to bring back their loyal shoppers and to enhance that shopping experience, I feel like Target has a lot of upside. It's just right now they're really beaten up. No, I do not think they're the next JCPenney's. No, I do not think they're the next Kohl's. I think Target right now, they're going through it. So objectively on paper, it's bad. However, my personal opinion, I'm not a shareholder of Target. I sold out of them at about $120, $125 earlier this year for like a 40% profit. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I had no idea that they were going to want to sell off down to freaking $87. I didn't know. I sold it at the perfect time. And right now I'm eyeballing whether or not I want to buy back into them. And when I take into account their most recent earnings report, it was pretty darn good. It was bullish. But unfortunately, their guidance for the future, uncertain. And they also had a change and transition in their CEO. I disagree with that move because they brought up the chief operating officer who's been with the company for 2 decades. He lives, thinks, and breathes Target. So I don't think he's going to be able to bring anything new to the table as the CEO. Because think about it. If you've been with a company or a firm for like 20 or 25 years, all you know is how to think like what you've been doing in the past, correct? Especially to get to that position of COO. So I disagree because I think they should have brought someone new, potentially someone from like Five Below, someone from like Walmart or Amazon, like an executive vice president, so that they can bring new tricks to this magic show. So I disagree and I don't feel happy about the CEO transition. This might be unpopular, but it is what it is. So taking all of that into account, I really like their dividend profile. I do not like the trajectory of their numbers and data. However, I do feel optimistic about them. I think their future will be brighter than it is right now. Case in point, if we pull up Dollar General on the screen, I think they went through the exact same situation where their financials took a hit and everyone was super bearish towards them. And Dollar General went from essentially like $2.43 down to roughly $68 at the beginning of this year. Now, I called it wrong. Ultimately, I made a decision not to buy into them because I didn't feel bullish about them. But now, if you look at a year to date, dude, up by 44%, correct? So looking at Dollar General as kind of an example, I think with Target, sorry, let me pull them up right here. Right now, yeah, they're in this rough patch. I mean, they also, during their high, roughly $2.50 a share. Now they're $93. I'm not saying that past performance is indicative of future success and future gains, but a brand as strong as Target, they have so much potential. And there's a customer base that refuses to walk through the doors of their competition. It's just a matter of, can they bring back the customers that they lost to Costco, to Sam's Club, to Amazon? Okay, so if they can pull that off, I think that's going to be a Disney story, a Disney movie. So with Target, I know that's a really long-winded way for me to say, I'm going to put them right here in the C. I think even though their dividend profile is spectacular and stellar, facts are they're in a pickle and it's stinky. But as my friend Adam said, I think Target would make sense. I understand why some people would invest into them because it's like buying into a bond that pays a pretty safe and a high dividend yield with the potential upside being baked in, whether or not that happens. But you get a high yield, and if they recover, then you're also going to get a spectacular CAGR. If not, well, you still get a 4.9% dividend yield. So a C. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world because I'm also potentially debating almost every morning. I'm like, should I buy into it? Should I not? And ultimately, my buy orders never trigger for the price that I want them at. Now, the next Dividend King is kind of a surprise. I had no idea that they were a publicly traded company until I did my video, the food CPG industry breakdown video. And then I was like, wait, what? They're publicly traded? And it's going to be Tootsie Roll Industries, ticker symbol TR. And they've been increasing their dividend payment for the past 56 years. And they're a CPG that's in the business of selling candy and chocolate, but not really the type of candy that you like, but it's the type of candy that your grandma has. You know, that big bowl back in the 90s? The candy that's kind of like, all right, thanks, but no thanks, Granny. Year to date, what are we working with? 30%. Likewise, if we think about their competition, Hershey, I think they're also having kind of a renaissance and a rebound. Year to date, they're also up by 9.5%. Not as cute as Tootsie, but all that to say, the chocolate players are back, baby. 30% for Tootsie is quite impressive, to say the least, right? Dividend profile, dividend yield, not so cute. 0.8%. Payout ratio, about 29%. Isn't that kind of weird? We keep seeing a 29% dividend payout ratio. I'm assuming that if I were to open up their 10K, that's probably the level that the management wants to keep their dividend at. Because usually a company lays out their game plan in terms of their dividend, like, hey, we do not want this to get above a 75% payout ratio, or this is the rate of growth that we expect for this year, the next year, and the years to come. That kind of stuff can be found in the 10K. However, it is kind of boring because it's like 200, 300 pages of just financials. But bringing it back down here, their dividend growth rate is in line with the rate of inflation. I would argue their dividend profile is healthy. But is it juicy? It's not cheesy. It's not lovely. It's just healthy, for a lack of better words, to be nice to them. But if we look at their financials real quick, yikes. It looks like their top line has been stagnant since about 2023. It's not really growing. Now, when it comes to the business landscape of chocolates and candy, I'm pretty bullish. I think there was a lot of fear about the weight loss drugs making everyone never wanting to touch any sugary foods ever again. But I think candy is just one of those things where we all enjoy. Now, I don't really have a sweet tooth. I'm more of a savory guy. Like if I were to go trick-and-treating as a 30-something-year-old right now, I would prefer someone put beef jerky into my little bag, my little pumpkin, rather than candy. But I know that's not normal. Most of the population, you like candy. You get candy for Valentine's Day. You get candy for Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, all of these holidays in order to pump up the sales on a seasonal basis. I think I'm going to have to put them right here. I think very similar dividend profile to S&P Global, which is kind of crazy to say. As remember these numbers, payout ratio, dividend growth rate, dividend yield, pretty darn similar. Except I think S&P Global's dividend growth rate is a hair better. Like if your hairline's receding, they still have the crown hair right here, okay? But I think I'm gonna be really controversial here because we have a lot more dividend kings to get to, and we're running out of space in the C tier. And so I think, I know this is gonna be so bad, but we're gonna bump ADM down to an F tier. We're going to bump down S&P Global to the D plus tier and Tootsie Roll to the D plus as well. Because I think these three right here, their dividend profiles pretty similar. With S&P Global and Tootsie Roll being similar as well. With ADM, to be in the F tier, hold on, I feel like this was too much. Maybe ADM can be in the D for now, and then we'll revisit whether or not they're going to be in the F tier. Now, it's not that they're an F tier as a company overall, but in comparison to the other dividend kings. Hopefully Hopefully that bridges the gap of like, what the heck is going on, man? This cognitive dissonance of why are you placing them so low? Now, the next company, friends and family, is going to be Altria, ticker symbol MO, and it's a tobacco giant that is an absolute quiet compounder. Nobody really talks about them, but when you look at their performance, they are just ridiculous. It's a men playing among boys, as we used to say, varsity football versus JV. Take a look at this. So Altria, for the past 5 years, their total return is 129%. Past 15 years, we're working with 618%. You would have 7x your money in Altria. Past 20 years, 1,787%. Just ridiculous, didn't I say? And if we compare it to the benchmark, which is also commonly referred to as the S&P 500, in the exact same time period, the 20-year CAGR, taking that big number broken down, annualized, 15.8% for Altria. Same time period for S&P 500, 10.6%. And if we just look at the past 12 months, 32% versus 19.2%. And remember, the S&P 500 includes Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Apple, the Mag 7 stocks, and this tobacco giant takes a hot steaming dump all over their head. All right, it's kind of smelly. It's kind of a gross visualization, so let's move on. Take a look at their dividend profile. A 6% dividend yield. Are you freaking kidding me right now? That is beautiful. Just straight beautiful. Payout ratio, a little high, but as we alluded to earlier, this is a very old, established, mature company. So kind of makes sense that it's near that territory. Dividend growth rate is slightly above inflation, which is good. This is a good thing to see at 4%. Now, even though I personally do not use any tobacco products, I think their future is gonna be pretty bright. Because once again, I'll say it, their dividend yield is a 6% qualified dividend payment, and they're growing it for the past 56 years. They outperform the market. Their financials are a little rough because they're so freaking mature that it's all about optimizing their margins. I'll just show it to you. Jump on over to their financial statement. See, their revenue has been shrinking since 2021. Visually depicted, I mean, it kind of looks flat since about 2015. No, that's not true because 2015 was 18.8 billion. Now it's 20.2 billion, but it looks pretty flat, right? Visually depicted. So it's all about optimizing their margins, which they have been. Because if you look at their margins, I would argue since 2019, it's just been going up. Well, past 12 months, it's slightly down, but $5.17. And what's crazy is if you look at their free cash flow per share, it's increasing up and to the right almost every single year since 2016. So their dividend, absolutely sustainable and it's healthy. A 6.1% dividend yield. I think Altria deserves to be right next to Walmart. Now, I almost have to reevaluate Walmart because with Walmart, the dividend profile, nothing to write home about, right? Their dividend yield is less than 1%, but their growth rate is phenomenal. So I feel conflicted because Altria's dividend yield is just fantastic, but their financials are a little booty. I guess one could argue they're in the A tier for different reasons. What one lacks, the other has. It's like whether or not you prefer to drive stick shift or not. It doesn't really make you a better driver. Some people could argue it does, but I think as it stands, we'll just leave them be. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah, Walmart A tier, Altria A tier, I think it makes sense. Now the next dividend king is California Water Service Group. They've been increasing their dividend payment for the past 58 years. It's a water utility company that prints cash. They're featured in my water industry breakdown video. If we jump on over to their dividend profile, a 2.5% dividend yield, payout ratio, sustainable, growth rate, phenomenal. 10.9% visually depicted. Oh, wow. They've been increasing their dividend at a pretty astronomical rate. And when it comes to their future trajectory, I feel pretty positive about the outcomes of their business operations, at least for the next 20 years or so. I think their dividend profile is probably going to put them in right here into the B tier, but we're running into an issue. There's too many companies here. So if we revisit BD, take a look at this 2.1. That's pretty similar numbers. I think BD will stay. PepsiCo, dare I even say, should I bump them up to the A tier? Let's evaluate this together. 3.9% growth rate. The next dividend king is ABM. They've been increasing their dividend payment for the past 58 years, as you can see on your screen right now, past 58 years, and they maintain and manage facilities, office buildings, and warehouses, which also includes janitorial staff that does waste management. And their dividend profile is just absolutely bonkers because dividend yield is okay. It's decent, 2.2%, healthy, but this number right here just... Dude, a 17.7% growth rate of their dividends. I want to see this visually depicted because that is just astronomical and crazy. And I feel pretty strong about waste management, janitorial services. So I think their future is going to be set in stone. Pretty solid company. I think based off of that alone, dare I even say ABM, are you in the A tier? I think you're in the A tier. Now, if we take into account their CAGR, their performance, their free cash flow, their debt to cash levels, and everything else, of course, we can knock them down a notch or two. But as it stands, I think they're A. It's just funny to say, right? ABM, bro. Now, the next dividend king is Hormel Foods Corporation. I don't know if it's pronounced Hormel or Hormel. However, I think it just rolls off the tongue better when I say Hormel. Their dividend yield is 4.5%. Payout ratio, a little high, yellow flag territory. Growth rate is less than desirable, and they've been growing their dividend for the past 59 years, and it's a protein CPG. Nearly every single one of their products on the grocery shelves includes some element of protein or meat, and I think very recently they went on this massive sell-off where you could see they were trading for like $29 and they dropped down to $25 a share, which means their earnings did not go as anticipated. But if you understand anything about the consumer trends of how we're prioritizing protein, I still feel pretty bullish about Hormel. Maybe not like numbers that are posted by Nvidia or Broadcom, but definitely a slow and steady compounder. Even though their dividend yield is pretty good at a 4.5% yield, I think the growth rate is less than desirable as we agreed upon. So I think pretty similar to Target, right? I think the numbers that Hormel, keep that in mind, and then with Target, pretty similar. Except Target's growth rate is a little lower, but their payout ratio is a little more healthy. So I think with Hormel, we'll leave them at the C tier. Now, if we move on to the next company, it's going to be Colgate-Palmolive, ticker symbol CL, and they've been increasing their dividend payment for the past 62 years. Dude, that is crazy. And they do household essentials CPG, including toothpaste, dish soap, Hill's pet food, deodorant, and my personal favorite body soap, Irish Spring. Dude, that thing just smells amazing. I've been looking for a cologne that smells like the Irish Spring soap bar, but I just can't find one. Anyways, their dividend profile, a 2.4% dividend yield, payout ratio, not bad, dividend growth rate, pretty much everything in their dividend profile is just decent. Nothing really screams and says we're amazing. And we're going to cover another CPG later on this list. However, I think Colgate-Palmolive, dare I even say every single one of their products except for Irish Spring, clear number 2 or 3 in the category that is in question. I don't think they're best in class in anything except Irish Spring. So in terms of their future trajectory, I don't feel as bullish towards them as I do with another one of their peers, but their ROIC, which is the return on invested capital, is best in class. So they make good usage and utilization of the capital that they have to work with. But anyways, with Colgate, I think it's fair to put them into the C tier. I think they're doing everything correctly. It's just decent across the board. Nothing really screams amazing. And the next dividend king is Coca-Cola, ticker symbol KO. They've been increasing their dividend for the past 63 years, and it's an iconic beverage brand that also has a portfolio that's huge. That includes my favorite choice of milk, Fairlife, because it has the most protein per serving. I'm also one of those people that cares about protein because if I don't eat an adequate amount of protein, my body starts to just shrink and shrivel. I lose weight so easily that I have to eat a lot It's why I had to give up bodybuilding. It's so freaking expensive to maintain the muscle mass. But 3% dividend yield, and by the way, Warren Buffett really loves this company. 71% payout ratio, dividend growth rate of 5.2%. Okay, I think everything here checks out, and it's pretty good. I mean, I bet their financials are just as reliable and steady. Yeah, I mean, since 2020, it's been increasing, which is kind of weird because in 2015, they had $44 billion. So it took them almost 10 years to reach that exact same level again. But we'll give it to them. At least it is increasing since the pandemic, $47 billion. And their future and trajectory, it's almost the same way that I feel about PepsiCo. So I think when it comes to Coca-Cola, I think it's kind of difficult for me to put them into the B tier alongside with PepsiCo because if we remember their dividend profile for Coca-Cola, 3% dividend yield, 5% dividend growth rate, and we compare that to their peer is 3.9% and the growth rate is higher. So I think with Coca-Cola, I think they're going to be a strong C+. And that's not to say they're bad. It's just in comparison, a 1-for-1 for the dividend profile, I think Pepsi does come out on top because my opinion of their future is almost exactly the same. I feel good about them. So it has to boil down to the dividend profile to make the differences. And I think their dividend yield being slightly higher and the growth rate being better, I think that makes the difference for me. The next dividend king is going to be Johnson & Johnson, ticker symbol JNJ. They've been increasing their dividend payment for the past 63 years. That is diabolical. Dividend yield is 2.9%. Dividend growth rate is 4.5%. And it's probably one of the more appreciated pharmaceuticals in the dividend investing community. Everyone seems to like J&J as an investment. But did you know they also have a medical device arm of the business that includes contact lens, artificial heart ingredients, and foot care? Their dividend profile checks out. I think it's pretty decent. Like B tier based on this alone. Their future, I'm just kind of, as a guy that used to be a strategy leader in the pharmaceutical space, I'm not a fan. But their dividend profile is not bad. So I think all things considered, I would probably put them into the B tier. No, maybe C+. I think I'm going to put them into the C+ tier. I think they're very similar to Coca-Cola on their dividend profile level. Now, this is where it gets a little ridiculous because the next dividend king, 67 years of dividend payment increases. That's wild. And that's going to be 3M. And it's one of those companies that own a crap ton of patents for various products that we use every single day, including window tint, Scotch tape, Post-it notes, and they even make medical equipment for hospitals. When we take a look at their dividend profile, 1.8% dividend yield, the dividend growth rate, what is happening here, friends and family, negative 34%. Let me just check it out because that doesn't sound right. So upon further review, back in 2024, they did a spinoff of their consumer health line of the business, like their facial skincare products and whatnot, that was Solvitum. And consequently, their dividend got cut in the process. So upon further review, I do not think that 3M is a dividend king because you gotta be increasing the dividend payments. So this right here is inaccurate. This is not growing 67 years. I think they've been paying the dividend for the past 67 years, but not growing it. This right here, no bueno. So even though they're not a dividend king, I guess just for fun, we'll go ahead and place them. I think that's what an F is. Just based off of the dividend profile, man, F tier, because you cut the dividend, friend. But again, I want to emphasize 3M is not a dividend king. As a matter of fact, they should be down here. They're not even a part of the conversation, but we'll just put them in the F tier, okay? Moving on to the next dividend king, we are working with Procter Gamble. Now, do you remember how earlier I said Colgate-Palmolive is number 2 or number 3 in almost every CPG category because of their peer? That peer in question is ticker symbol PG. They've been growing their dividend for the past 69 years. And Procter & Gamble is a household essential CPG that sells best-in-class products such as Tide laundry detergent. Dude, it's the best. No question. Maybe Purcell, maybe my Henkel might be able to compete with them, but I think Tide and Ariel, the best laundry detergent. Dawn dish soap, you use Dawn and there's going to be less scrubbing involved. I'll tell you that right now. They also make diapers for the babies, Gillette razors, and even Head and Shoulders shampoo. Their dividend profile, 2.6% dividend yield. Payout ratio is 64%. Dividend growth rate, everything here is decent. Growth rate, I would argue, above average. Thinking about their future, it doesn't matter if the times are rough or if we're in a recession, you're still gonna have to shampoo your little bald head. You're still gonna have to buy some diapers and laundry detergent. I think their business model is absolutely resilient. So, in the case of Procter & Gamble, gosh, I really wanted to see a higher growth rate or a dividend yield because that would have put them to the A tier, but I think everything about them was just decent. So, having said that, I think Procter & Gamble is B tier. When I say that, I mean they just barely made it there. They're B minus, C plus. I guess I'll put them right here in between. They could go either way, C or B. Now, the last one is going to be the American States Water Company, ticker symbol AWR. That one, not American Water Works. Very similar names, same line of business, but they're competitors. And as the name might imply, it's a water utility. Dividend yield is 2.7%, payout ratio 58%, dividend growth rate 8.2%, and they've been growing their dividend for the past 71 years. Absolutely wild. That's simply amazing, isn't it? And I would argue, as of right now, they're kind of in that buying opportunity territory. I've been eyeballing them week after week because I'm thinking about pulling the trigger. Because as you can see, they had their little highs and lows, and year to date, they're down by 3.9%. 1 year metric, $70.30. They're currently $74. I think what's going to help them make the push into the B tier is their dividend growth rate being at least 8%. And I know when I shrink it, it'll look hard to see. So Procter & Gamble, I feel like that's controversial. P&G into the C tier? I'll put them right here on the end. They're in the back of the bus. Procter & Gamble B tier, but also American States. So now that we have ranked 21, actually it's 20 Dividend Kings plus 3M, because they're not a Dividend King, now I'm going to elevate one of these stocks into the S tier. Obviously, we're not going to be picking from the D or C. We're going to be picking from the A tier. What we're working with is Walmart, Altria, and ABM. Their dividend yield, nothing to write home about, but their growth rate was phenomenal, like world class. And then when we think about ABM, their dividend profile, their growth rate was even better, to the point where I think Walmart needs to be knocked down because their dividend yield is double that of Walmart's. And then what was the last A? Oh, and Altria. And then there's Altria. Their dividend yield is diabolical, absolutely absurdly high, but it's sustainable. So I think it's going to be a competition between Altria and ABM. So dare I even say Walmart is an A, so I'll put them right here, A minus, B plus. So it boils down to Altria versus ABM. And I think to do a tiebreaker, I think we're just going to have to refer to their performance. Because I think Altria, past 20 years, is 1,787%, right? What I'm curious about is how will ABM fare in this duel? Okay, so for the past 1 year, the yellow line is depicting ABM and the blue line is Altria. Past 3 years, Altria comes out on top. Past, 15 years, Altria is 3x that of ABM, and then past 20 years, all right, I've seen enough. Friends and family, I think the best dividend king is, drumroll, Walmart. No, I'm just kidding. I'm pulling on your right nipple. It's going to be Altria. Altria, there's a lot to like about them as a dividend-paying stock. Now, that concludes the ranking and grading and evaluating of all of the different various dividend kings. I did leave out some, the ones that are lesser known, but for the most part, I tried to feature all of the popular big household names. Now, what do you think? What would you have done differently? Obviously, 3M, not a part of this conversation, but is there any dividend king that you would have placed in a different grade than I did? Let me know. Love the conversation. All right, guys. So I've been toying with a new series idea, and I need your feedback on this. So I was thinking about, what if I start reviewing and roasting your portfolios on the channel? So basically, you would send me over your portfolio. I don't know how we would do it. I'll figure out the details later, like a screenshot, or you can send me like your M1 Finance or Snowball link to your holdings, and then I'll give you my honest take of every single one of the holdings, unless you have like 500 different stocks. So I guess it has to be a reasonable amount of stocks that we're working with. And then I'll point out what's strong, what's weak, and what really doesn't make sense in your portfolio, especially for your age group and your goals. And if it's bad, I'll trash it. Now, obviously, because I'm roasting your portfolios, think of it as like educational, but more importantly, fun and for entertainment purposes. I'm debating whether or not $25 per portfolio review is a fair price and if that would make sense. Because I know some people charge like $200 or $500, and I think that's kind of crazy. But for me, I'll charge a lower fee because I'll also record myself reviewing the portfolio and then upload it onto the channel. So when I think about $25, I feel like it's enough to keep things serious, to keep like the weirdos away, but it's also still affordable if you want to see your portfolio roasted, featured, and broken down on the Dividend Compounders with Cheese channel. Of course, your identity, the size of your belly button, and personal details will not be shared. Just your age and your goals. And of course, the holdings of your portfolio. Now, is this a terrible idea? Let me know. I feel like it would be fun, so please give me your feedback. Now, with that said, I love you guys. Stay safe. Good luck in the stock market, and I will talk to you next time. Peace.